Prologue, Chapter 2 of Armadale. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Armadale by Wilkie Collins. Prologue, Chapter 2. The Solid Side of the Scotch Character. At 10 o'clock the next morning, Mr. Neal, waiting for the medical visit which he had himself appointed for that hour, looked at his watch, and discovered, to his amazement, that he was waiting in vain. It was close on 11 when the door opened at last, and the doctor entered the room. "I appointed 10 o'clock for your visit," said Mr. Neal. "In my country, a medical man is a punctual man." "In my country," returned the doctor, without the least ill humour, "a medical man is exactly like other men. He is at the mercy of accidents. Pray grant me your pardon, sir, for being so long after my time. I have been detained by a very distressing case, the case of Mr. Armadale, whose travelling carriage you passed on the road yesterday." Mr. Neal looked at his medical attendant with a sour surprise. There was a latent anxiety in the doctor's eye, a latent preoccupation in the doctor's manner, which he was at a loss to account for. For a moment the two faces confronted each other silently, in marked national contrast. The Scotchman's long and lean, hard and regular; the German's plump and florid, soft and shapeless. One face looked as if it had never been young, the other as if it would never grow old. "May I venture to remind you," said Mr. Neal, "that the case now under consideration is my case, and not Mr. Armadale's." "Certainly," replied the doctor, still vacillating between the case he had come to see and the case he had just left. "You appear to be suffering from lameness. Let me look at your foot." Mr. Neal's malady, however serious it might be in his own estimation, was of no extraordinary importance in a medical point of view. He was suffering from a rheumatic affection of the ankle joint. The necessary questions were asked and answered, and the necessary baths were prescribed. In 10 minutes the consultation was at an end, and the patient was waiting in significant silence for the medical adviser to take his leave. "I cannot conceal from myself," said the doctor, rising and hesitating a little, "that I am intruding on you, but I am compelled to beg your indulgence if I return to the subject of Mr. Armadale." "May I ask what compels you?" "The duty which I owe as a Christian," answered the doctor, "to a dying man." Mr. Neal started. Those who touch his sense of religious duty touch the quickest sense of his nature. "You have established your claim on my attention," he said gravely. "My time is yours." "I will not abuse your kindness," replied the doctor, resuming his chair. "I will be as short as I can. Mr. Armadale's case is briefly this. He has passed the greater part of his life in the West Indies, a wild life and a vicious life by his own confession. Shortly after his marriage, now some 3 years since, the first symptoms of an approaching paralytic affection began to show themselves, and his medical advisers ordered him away to try the climate of Europe. Since leaving the West Indies he has lived principally in Italy, with no benefit to his health. From Italy, before the last seizure attacked him, he removed to Switzerland, and from Switzerland he has been sent to this place. So much I know from his doctor's report. The rest I can tell you from my own personal experience. Mr. Armadale has been sent to Wildbad too late. He is virtually a dead man. The paralysis is fast spreading upward, and disease of the lower part of the spine has already taken place. He can still move his hands a little, but he can hold nothing in his fingers. He can still articulate, but he may wake speechless tomorrow or the next day. If I give him a week more to live, I give him what I honestly believe to be the utmost length of his span. At his own request, I told him as carefully and as tenderly as I could what I have just told you. The result was very distressing. The violence of the patient's agitation was a violence which I despair of describing to you. I took the liberty of asking him whether his affairs were unsettled. Nothing of the sort. His will is in the hands of his executor in London, and he leaves his wife and child well provided for. My next question succeeded better. It hit the mark. Have you something on your mind to do before you die, which is not done yet? He gave a great gasp of relief, which said, as no words could have said it, yes. Can I help you? Yes, I have something to write that I must write. Can you make me hold a pen? He might as well have asked me if I could perform a miracle. I could only say no. If I dictate the words, he went on, can you write what I tell you to write? Once more I could only say no. I understand a little English, but I can neither speak it nor write it. Mr. Armadale understands French when it is spoken as I speak it to him, slowly, but he cannot express himself in that language, and of German he is totally ignorant. In this difficulty, I said, what anyone else in my situation would have said, why ask me? There is Mrs. Armadale at your service in the next room. And before I could get up from my chair to fetch her, he stopped me, not by words, but by a look of horror which fixed me, by main force of astonishment, in my place. Surely, I said, your wife is the fittest person to write for you as you desire. The last person under heaven, he answered. What, I said, you ask me, a foreigner and a stranger, to write words at your dictation which you keep a secret from your wife? Conceive my astonishment when he answered me, without a moment's hesitation, yes. I sat lost. I sat silent. If you can't write English, he said, find somebody who can. I tried to remonstrate. He burst into a dreadful moaning cry, a dumb entreaty like the entreaty of a dog. Hush, hush, I said, I will find somebody. Today, he broke out, before my speech fails me like my hand. Today, in an hour's time. He shut his eyes. He quieted himself instantly. While I am waiting for you, he said, let me see my little boy. He had shown no tenderness when he spoke of his wife, but I saw the tears on his cheeks when he asked for his child. My profession, sir, has not made me so hard a man as you might think, and my doctor's heart was as heavy when I went out to fetch the child as if I had not been a doctor at all. I am afraid you think this rather weak on my part. The doctor looked appealingly at Mr. Neal. He might as well have looked at a rock in the Black Forest. Mr. Neal entirely declined to be drawn by any doctor in Christendom out of the regions of plain fact. Go on, he said. I presume you have not told me all that you have to tell me yet. Surely you understand my object in coming here now, returned the other. Your object is plain enough at last. You invite me to connect myself blindfold with a matter which is in the last degree suspicious so far. I decline giving you any answer until I know more than I know now. Did you think it necessary to inform this man's wife of what had passed between you, and to ask her for an explanation? Of course I thought it necessary, said the doctor, indignant at the reflection on his humanity which the question seemed to imply. If ever I saw a woman fond of her husband and sorry for her husband, it is this unhappy Mrs. Armadale. As soon as we were left alone together, I sat down by her side, and I took her hand in mine. Why not? I'm an ugly old man, and I may allow myself such liberties as these. Excuse me, said the impenetrable Scotchman. I beg to suggest that you are losing the thread of the narrative. Nothing more likely, returned the doctor, recovering his good humour. It is in the habit of my nation to be perpetually losing the thread, and it is evidently in the habit of yours, sir, to be perpetually finding it. What an example here of the order of the universe and the everlasting fitness of things! Will you oblige me, once for all, by confining yourself to the facts?" persisted Mr. Neal, frowning impatiently. "May